All right. Thank you everyone for participating in another episode of Dubai's Daughter. I have my cousin on the line, actually, Kevin L. Davis. Can you introduce yourself, sir?
Hi, my name's Kevin Davis. Marketing and branding professional here in Chicago, Illinois, by way of Detroit.
All right. So we have an icebreaker. I hope you got the question. So it is, can you tell us about your first business etiquette experience and the results? Was it a good one? Was it a bad one? Did you gain a job? Did you lose a job? Can you tell us about that? Or have you ever had one?
That's my first business etiquette experience. I would probably say that it was my first job on campus, many years ago at Eastern Michigan University, working in the Office of Risk Management. It was real dry, real boring, but it taught me a lot very early. And that was my first professional job. Before that, I did pizzas and worked at a music store. So that was different working in an office setting. And so it was a lot that I had to learn just around just etiquette, um, composing emails, answering the phone in meetings, knowing how to answer questions a certain way and knowing when to just kind of chill out and not respond to every single thing. So it was a good learning example for me, working in that environment, which was in the office of the vice president of finance at the university. So it was a pretty high, probably it was a low level job, but in a high visibility area. So I
Access.
learned very quickly, what expectations were when it came to business etiquette.
Yeah. So you haven't had any mishaps? You didn't have any mishaps there, or maybe possibly recognition for doing a great job?
No, I didn't think of any mishaps that I've experienced personally. I've definitely managed people over the years where we've had some business etiquette come to Jesus coaching conversations. But I think I'm pretty good by learning by example and just observing other people. So I haven't had any experiences where it was like, hey, that was a no-no, or you shouldn't have done that. Um, but I've definitely had to have those conversations with people I've managed over the years. And I think part of that was just due to observing my dad. He worked in the financial, the banking industry. And so he was very straightforward and professional at everything. So I think I just kind of observed that growing up. And then when I got into my first job on campus, like it was an extension, but it was still a learning experience because I was off on my own. And I was the only one of two people that looked like me in there. So that was a whole cultural experience. That was something that I was not used to coming from Detroit.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Well, first of all, good thing you picked up some things from your dad.
Hmm.
He was there to help you, or so it's not like he was just showing you these things. You were just watching him, listening to
Yeah.
him, picking up, right?
Yeah.
And then it's sad. I guess you could say some part of it is sad. Is that it's only two people that look like you.
Yeah.
Let's call it breaking ground, because I'm sure they have more. My daughter did the same type of thing with the finance department in undergrad and in her graduate school. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty
You
good.
know, when you asked me, did I have any experiences or or any kind of recognitions, I had to think about that for a second. And if I've thought about it, I have had a situation um, where I had to respond. I'm choosing my words carefully, where I've had to respond to a situation that required a lot of tact and business etiquette, but at the same time had to really send a strong message to respond to this particular person. And my boss was like, that was a great response. Um, and they said that they wouldn't have been able to craft such a message um, to convey that what needed to be conveyed to that person. Part of it was being challenged on my authority, my decision-making authority in the role, and a decision that I made. And so I had to tactfully respond to them and say, this is how we arrived at this decision, and essentially say, it is what it is. It's not up for discussion or debate. And the answer is what it is, but it was it was also a moment where I had to, dig my heels into the ground, being relatively new into an organization, to say, A, yes, he knows what he's talking about.
Yes.
And B, he's not afraid to push back to someone that's senior to him, but it was done in a very respectful manner. And I did get some recognition from my boss on that, just saying that was a great response. And it took me a little bit to, one thing I've learned, again, this is another piece I learned from my dad, is to not react immediately. If you have the time, just take a minute, or even just say, I'll respond to this tomorrow. And so you sleep on it, weigh out your responses, and think, how could this go based on my response? And is it worth proving a point, or am I really setting someone straight on something? A lot of people like to be petty and get back with people, and in the workplace, that's not always wise. And so that's why I like to just kind of sleep on it. And I slept on that and tested it out with a friend before I sent it sent it out, and my boss was like, no, that was great. Yeah.
You sent it via email, so it wasn't a face-to-face.
Right. This is an email.
That's good. And
Mm-hmm.
What makes it even better is that it is an email, and with an email, tone always plays a part, and someone can misconstrue how you're saying this versus you actually verbalizing it,
And that makes it harder. That definitely makes it harder. Even like on right now, we're recording this, but we can see each other. So you can see my reaction, and I can see your reaction. And with email, you don't have that. Or even with a professional Zoom call, you have that, but in email, you don't. And so you have to figure out, what does my tone look like? I have the 3 T's: tone, time, and tact. That's my application for everything. And so make tone, timing, and tact. And so you'd have to weigh all that out. Is this conveying the right tone? And it needed to be a firm tone, but it didn't need to be strong or aggressive. And so really measuring how I wanted this to come across, and am I closing it the right way to say, thank you for your feedback on this. We'll consider this going forward as something we need to build into our rollout plan, but it is what it is. That's what I need to say at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yes. Very good. Very, very good. Okay. In high school, well, first of all, what are you doing career-wise?
So right now I am very busy working in healthcare. So I lead the marketing, communications, and community engagement efforts for a nonprofit healthcare organization in Chicago, serving just under 85,000 patients, with about 700 employees, and an annual budget of about $77 million in the organization. So it's a pretty big nonprofit in the community. So lead the marketing and branding efforts there, which is pretty exciting, especially since the organization serves predominantly Latino patients, and that's typically an underrepresented, under-resourced community. And so bringing my background as a Black man and some of the same considerations that we have in our communities,
Yes.
bringing that perspective and thought into the marketing and branding into this organization has been pretty awesome.
That's good. You got to be good at what you're doing.
I like to think so.
You've been there. You've been in that role.
I've been here just under a year and a half. And so prior to that, I worked for an AmeriCorps program called City Year. Worked with the Chicago Public Schools, providing mentoring support for them. And prior to that, I worked at 2 different universities, North Park University and University of Illinois, Chicago, doing marketing and branding for student affairs, as well as the graduate degree programs.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a lot of experience right there. I was trying to get you to pull some of that out because Tobias Jordan Land does not know these things. So we're trying to get that out and let them know we're talking to this is the right guy right here for marketing. So he's been doing this for a while. Anybody that's listening, we'll have some contact information up. And
Yeah, I'll talk all day about this. So I'm holding back as to not take over the conversation. So if you need to pull something out, I have no problem with it.
you're my guest. And this is what I want everyone to hear. I want them to hear different people in different fields dealing with business etiquette. I want them to know where you came from, how you got to the point that you are now. So
Mhm.
feel free,
Okay.
let it go. Okay. All right. So in high school, did you know what you wanted to do with your life?
I thought I did. Um, I've always been a creative, freehand illustrator, artist. And so when I was in high school, I thought going into high school, I thought I wanted to be a car designer. So I drew cars a lot. I'm from Detroit. And then the further I got into my high school career and started meeting different people and being a part of a few different academic programs, I thought that either architecture or mechanical engineering was what I wanted to do. Until I really got into those space, I still loved architecture. It wasn't what I wanted to do. There was way too much math involved. I hate math. At that time, I'll say it. I hated math at that time. Um, and then it just kind of shifted and saying I'll figure it out when I get to college, which is advice that I don't recommend. Don't figure it out once you get there. Have an idea before you go. Um, 'Cause if otherwise you'll spend some time playing around and losing some classes and credits, like I did, trying to figure out who you are, which can be very expensive.
A lot of people are doing that though. They don't know what they want to do, um, but they want to go to college. And
Yeah.
to me, having a level of higher education is very, very important. But why waste the money if you don't know what you want to do?
Yeah.
If you don't know, I'm going to complete this. It has to be a completion.
Yeah.
You start it, you have to complete it, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing for me. But everybody's not college material.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There are ways to there's ways to get higher education out there.
I definitely agree with that. And there are many more options now than there were back when I graduated from high school. Back then, if there wasn't that many options, you went to college, you had the community college route, but that was like realistic. That was like frowned upon. People were like, ew, because the college experience meant going away to 4-year school. And, I did know some other folks that went into like trade programs, but even those were still kind of frowned upon. But now in 2020, there's I feel like even if college is not for you, there's some level of professional training for you. So even if you want to go into music, there's, the business of music programs. You still have your trades. Like there's way more opportunities to build a career in life instead of going to college. So, I recommend those that are unsure, talk to as many people as possible. There are some things, if someone looks at my path, they may think that I chose the best path, but if they talk to me, I'll tell them I would skip all of these steps here
Oh yeah.
and go this route. So, don't just go into debt and go to college just because you think that's what you should do.
Yeah.
Um, there are many more options, and it might make sense to go to community college first and still save that money if that's the route that you want to go.
Yeah, because those um credits transfer.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's an option too. And in every city there's a community college, you know. Um here there's our our high school and the community college together that's working for the teenagers now. So by the time they graduate from high school, they have college credits
Yep.
under their belts. That's a good thing. Everybody doesn't qualify for it, but at least it's out there. We
Yeah.
did. I know. So you said 97. I'm in the 80s, so we didn't have any things like that. We had
Yeah.
either military,
Yeah.
college, and you wanted to go to the 4-year college because you wanted to, get away from home.
Hmm.
Um, Community college, like you said, that was kind of frowned on,
Yep.
looked down on. It was because
Mm-hmm.
you're still at home with your mama.
Yep. It didn't have the glitz and glamour. It didn't, it didn't have the fancy jackets and teams and all of that. But like now in hindsight, it's like, man, you could have saved so much money
Yeah.
in going the other route. But something you just mentioned, like with the schools now partnering with these other institutions, again, that goes back to seeking it out. Like I encourage high school students, don't let your future be dictated by someone else. Take control of it. Go have those conversations with the counselors, go have conversations with your teachers, because you look up and you'll be down some path that you didn't want, but someone else pushed you down there. So like, just, you have so much control
You
at
do.
that age.
You do. Parents are very influential. We're just there. But what I give to us as parents is we see our child growing as they grow. We know what they're good at, and some of the activities that they do, we want to push them in that direction. That might not necessarily be where they end up in life,
Right.
but as parents, we do see that, and I pushed my daughter. You know, I did. I pushed her. Dude, you're good at this. She realized she's good at this, so like you said, she got with the counselors, guidance counselors, the teachers. There's so many people outside of just your parents or your guardians that influence you. Now that's good and that's bad.
Yeah.
A lot of people, so you're always looking for good, right? We're always looking for the good. Um, so yeah, I totally agree with that. Follow your path, find out what you like.
Yep.
And that's where my next question comes in. Did you intern in high school? Did you do any internships, high school, college?
In high school, no. I didn't know what was possible, to be honest. Being a creative person in the 90s was not what it is now. Um, I hate to say it, I feel like myself and a number of other people kind of gave up on their careers, potential careers. They didn't know they were careers. They gave up on their careers because they didn't know that there was a path. They didn't know that there was a way forward. So in high school, I was involved in sports and honor society and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't thinking about, career readiness or anything like that. It was college prep, what's going to get me prepared for college, but there was nothing, you know, career wise. Cause I know like even now, even as a creative who let it go for a number of years only to come back to it in college and then move on and, scale up to be a director of marketing, I didn't know that any of that was possible. So internships were off the table. And it wasn't until college that I did intern. I interned at a bank way before it was Chase Bank in Michigan. It was a number of mergers ago, before it was even Bank One. I interned at the same bank where my dad worked, which
Good.
was a great bonding experience. I love it. Those are great memories. But it also just taught me what that professional workplace looked like. Um, and it also told me that I did not want to work in finance. Um, so it was good for that. And the cool thing is, it's actually three people that I interned with that I'm still friends with, and that's, 20, 20 some, almost, yeah, 20 some years later. A couple of us went to college together, but we're still cool.
That's
Our parents worked together at the bank. And so I interned there in the summer. And then when I came home for holidays, whatever. So it was good money. And it was a good opportunity to learn, um, what it was like to be in a professional setting. But even then, after working in higher education and looking at the types of internships that are available, my internship was like playing games. I have friends that interned. Um, they had much more focus. They had a plan. I did not have a plan. I did the things that I felt I should have done. but I did not have a plan. And so my path is, prior to, for the last 15 years, prior to the last 15 years, was like kind of all over the place. I'm like, I'm trying to figure out what it is that I want to do because I can do a lot. And so without that plan, you just are all over the place,
Yeah.
trial and error.
Yeah. But first thing, the internship that you had at the bank with your dad, that was a paid internship.
Yes.
So a lot of people don't get paid internships. And that's one of the things that as we're doing, as we have guest speakers on here, we're letting them know that all internships are not paid.
Right.
But you are supposed to get something out of it.
Yeah.
You're supposed to get, I really like this. I really don't like this. See where you fit in. It's like a just a trial. It's a trial for you. It's a trial for the company.
Yeah.
But mostly, to me, it's mostly for you, for the intern.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because companies can get by without interns.
Yes.
But yeah, I definitely recommend folks that are looking at internships to look at those that are either going to give them credits for classes or money. And I know that that's not always possible, but at least make those the first two ways because college is expensive. And if you can get, if your internship can knock out a class, like that all saves you money. But, even when I worked at the university, when I had internships, I made sure that they were paid for the programs. I'm not a fan of free work, but I get it at that age. But you got to figure out, all right, I'm not getting paid for this, but I need to make this work for me. So what am I going to walk away from this internship opportunity with? And sometimes it may be connections. It may just be the experience, maybe just to have that name on, your resume, but you got to figure out what you're walking out with going into it, even with the paid or the credit-based ones.
Yes.
So
you still can put that on your resume.
Yeah.
And I tell everyone, if you do get an internship, complete it. I don't care how boring it is or how much you really don't like this or whatever. Complete it. That's something that's a completion on your resume.
I mean, if you're keeping it real, I mean, you may get a full job that is just as boring as that internship, and the difference might be that you're getting paid. And so everything's not going to be, we have to start, I think, also set realistic expectations. Everything's not going to be fun. Every role is not going to be a breakthrough role. Sometimes it's just a stop on the journey. That's how I look at roles. Even where I am now, I'm here. I want to achieve these things. And when I feel like I've achieved them, then it's time for me to move on to the next thing. So I already know what I need to walk away from my current role with to move forward. And so I've had those boring jobs over the years. And sometimes you just got to pay your dues. And it's not always about what you're doing, but what you're learning and what kind of network you're building, what kind of relationships you're building, and just kind of push through it. I'm not saying stay somewhere mundane forever, but everything's not going to be fun and exciting, especially depending on your career path. Yeah,
you have to build up. You're not going to come right out of high school now, not unless you are from money, or hit the lottery or something, and something like that. Anything else, you have to work. Even in those situations, someone had to work, to get you comfortable.
Yeah.
So there's some work put in, and everything is not going to be all fun and games, but you might have that one person on the most boring job you have that decides to take you up under their wing.
Yep.
Mentor you for your next role.
Yeah.
So just be patient, learn how to be quiet, be a listener, be sociable, or whatever, however you fit in there. They're saying get in where you fit in.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it right. So professionally. Yeah.
Something that you mentioned, about the resume, I just thought about it again. Like I did some interviews today. I sat in on some final interviews for a role within my team. And it's a pretty entry level position. And so, we're catching folks that are recent graduates or just now getting ready to complete their degrees. And, you know, in lieu of having that professional experience, seeing those internships is making all the difference. And I'm looking at, I work in a healthcare industry, so I'm looking at these resumes, and I'm seeing an internship at this hospital, internship at this nonprofit group, and they're all, maybe, 3 months, 6 months. And it's showing me that this person's fully immersed themselves into this industry and they want to learn as much as possible. And so they have a little bit of expertise or knowledge in all of these different areas. And especially as someone who's coming in, in these entry level roles, it's showing me that you really want to be in the space. And so you've played around and done some internships, and you say, this is the role that I want based on all my experience that I've had. So, not to make sure that those listening are not downplaying those internship opportunities. And, sometimes you have these job postings and the requirements look pretty daunting, expecting all this experience. But if you have experience and you can articulate, this is what I learned, this is what I did, this is how this connects with my long-term plan, like some of those requirements go out of the window for the right person. So, don't take yourself out of the equation, so early because you feel like you're not a perfect fit. Let me or my team as the people that are hired, let us knock you out of the application process, but don't knock yourself out of it thinking you're not qualified.
Because even the resume, the internships, everything else that you're looking at on paper, that could look absolutely good. We want to bring this person in to interview. Yeah. But when they get in there and they need to sell themselves to you.
Absolutely.
Right? That's appearance, the way that they speak. They should know something about your company. And this is a big thing for me. Research.
Yes.
Do your research. I'm going to meet with Kevin Davis. Kevin Davis is the director of marketing of this company. So you should have already been on their website, find out something. It doesn't have to be pertaining to you, Kevin, but it needs to be something that they can bring up, because you guys are going to ask. The interviewer is going to ask, give you just a few questions to ask. Do you have any questions? Is there anything that you like to say? Something that's your selling point right there.
Yeah, and I think it's, some homework that I recommend is to think of a couple things. Be prepared for the question, tell me about yourself. And I can't stress how many times I've been lost listening to someone because they're rambling about it. And so take a little bit of time and think about, what is your arc? So tell me about yourself. Oh, yeah, my name's Kevin Davis. I'm originally from Detroit. Went to this college, moved to Chicago back in 2009, started working in this, blah, blah, blah. And I've been in the nonprofit education space for this number of years, blah, blah, blah. And then end it with connecting with that organization. And so when I saw this opportunity here, I saw it as a good fit based on my career path. Bring it back home. So really think about it. What is that arc? Start, beginning, and end. But then also, I think it's beneficial to think about when somebody like me is going to ask you, why do you want to work here? Because I want to know what it is about our organization and how does it fit in your journey? How do we fit in where you're trying to go? What is that we can give you when you join us and when you leave? You guys got to look at it like that. You're going to leave at some point. Yeah. What can we give you? How do we fit in your career journey? So, being able to answer those two questions and be succinct with it and just bring it back to why I'm applying for this particular role, I think will be helpful. I think it's good homework. It evolves over time, but that is where I lose it every time. I'm like, oh, wow, I wish I could hit the wrap it up button because that person's never thought of that answer.
Well, and then I like that you are an interviewer. So you're giving the information that not just you, but interviewers, people in companies. Those are the questions that they're going to ask you.
Yeah.
Tell me something about yourself. you don't go into telling okay, so I'm the third child, my parents work here. I used to, you don't talk about all that's too personal.
Hmm.
You keep it from being personal. Now our audience, is the adults.
Hmm.
But we're geared toward 15, 16, 17-year old female.
Yep.
So we need the adults to make sure they tell them
Yep.
this information. Don't get too personal. Do
Yeah.
not overshare. That's the
Absolutely.
stay on topic. What did you do to get to this point? How did you get in front of me?
Hmm.
Right? So that's simplified the question that you are going to ask. What did I do to get my foot in this door, to be sitting in this seat talking to this guy that could possibly give me my job? Right?
Yep.
And that's what you're looking for.
Yep. We can cut all of the middle out. As my old English teacher used to say, stop putting all that lettuce on the sandwich. Don't nobody want that. Just keep the
Yeah,
meat on there.
I like that. That's good information, Kevin. It really is. I hope you guys are listening and picking up on this. Even the adults, if you're going for another position, you should be picking up on this as well. Okay. Okay. So how do you think company culture is impacting business etiquette right now? Is that a thing for you all?
I think company culture always impacts etiquette, um, and it varies based on the organization, and you got to figure out if that's a good fit for you. Um, it's just like that other saying, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Culture trumps everything. It doesn't matter what plans you have, what talent you hire. It does not matter if the culture of the organization is toxic, then it's going to override whatever you bring to the table. If the culture is passive aggressive, whatever, it doesn't matter what etiquette you have or bring to the table, that passive aggressiveness is going to override everything. And so, I know it's a bit harder when you're younger to kind of pick and choose where you're working or be able to even identify, um, what the culture looks like. But, you can pick up things sometimes in the interviews, just in the communications that were sent to you from the HR team, the phone calls that you receive, the screen, the screening interviews, the in-person interviews, just watching the interactions of people, seeing how they get along together, hearing, listening for, do you feel like the company has a good strategy? It feels like they're all over the place. They probably are. Um, and, I get it when you're younger, or in a situation where you don't have options, you have to bite the bullet and work there. But what I think is important is if you are in that situation, that you don't succumb to it. And I've worked in many of toxic environment, even to the point where I developed stress-induced anxiety. Um,
Border.
but you have to be mindful of um, that you can't control that situation, and you just have to learn how to play within that situation until you remove yourself from it. You can't change it. You'll drive yourself crazy uh, trying to take on the whole army. Just realize, what, I need to find a way to get out of here.
Yeah. So you don't just go in there and, like you said, the toxic culture and just join right in, you know? And there are a lot of people that are looking, it's not that they're looking for toxic, um, but if it comes along, it's right down my alley. I can just join right in. Well, that's company turnaround. They're going to get rid of you quicker because you're newer, or the more drama you bring about.
Hey, not even necessarily the drama that you bring. If you don't feed into the culture, if you're the one um, who doesn't ride along with the wave and you're not a part of the toxic crew and you stand alone, people feel like you're not a good culture fit anymore. And you're, you don't work well in that environment. I've been there. It's terrible. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can be real good. You can be very good at your job. You can exemplify the business etiquette skills. You can be shining bright. But if the area that you're in is toxic, then you're not a good fit. And that's good. It's good
No,
that you're not a good fit. That means you need to be moving on, right?
I look at it no different than a relationship. It's the same thing. You can be a great person and you can have all your stuff together. You can have a good plan and be a great partner to someone. But if that partner isn't a good fit for you, that's cool. Y'all are great over there. That works for y'all. But for me, I'm going to move on.
Yes.
I look at it as the same way. You're spending the same time. You're looking to reach an outcome, just like in a relationship. Whatever that is for you and that person, it could be marriage or not, but it's your job. You're trying to go somewhere, be happy, um, reach these outcomes while you're there. And if it's not a good fit, it's no hard feelings. It's just isn't a good place for me. And sometimes you have to be realistic, and that exit plan might take a lot longer than you like. And so, one piece of advice I have from experiences, um, is to not mentally check out until I'll say don't check out at all. Don't mentally check out because you don't know how long you're going to be there. And if you check out and you still have to stay in that environment and now no one wants to work with you, you begin hating going because especially when you're more junior in your career and you don't have that career mobility, you can't just start looking for somewhere else because you're still building your career. And so
Sure.
you can't just say, I'm going to leave. Some people think that. They'll say, oh, well, it's time for me to go. I'm in a couple of job groups on Facebook now. And the number of people that I see, the first time something happens, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to start applying somewhere else. And it's two things. One, you don't know how long that's going to take. But two, the other piece of it is something that I learned from a guy at a networking event a couple of years back. He said, before you leave somewhere, you need to have a conversation with yourself. What are you running from and what are you running toward? Because if you're running from something and you don't know how to really address it and get around it, it's going to be waiting for you wherever you're going to run.
Exactly.
And sometimes you are running toward a greater opportunity, and that's fine. But most cases, it's not. It's something we don't want to address. We don't want to manage up, deal with some of our own issues that play into some of the nonsense at work. We can't act like we're saints.
Yes.
And we want to leave, and then the same thing happens somewhere else. And so the question is, are you going to keep running
Is
from
it
job to job, or are you going to sit there and try to figure it out?
right?
And that's a hard truth to face.
If I left this job because of something that I'm running from and I go somewhere else and the same thing is happening, is it you? Is it the companies? Because it could be the companies too.
It could be, absolutely.
Yeah. One thing I
Absolutely. But the difference is how do you got to figure out how you react to it though. Because I've worked at a number of companies that have had issues, and then I realized that maybe this is a little bit more common in my field than I thought, but I have to learn how I can navigate around it because I can't keep moving. I can't go to other places. I figure out how do I address these things. Maybe it's me who brings up things to possibly change things. So that means I have to have trust with my boss to say, hey, these are concerns that I have, and these are my recommendations.
yes.
That part might come a little bit later in your career where you tell somebody, hey, these are my recommendations, but even sometimes just bringing it up to your boss, say, these are my concerns or these are my issues. Is there a way we can address these, instead of just running?
And that's the thing. It's two things that I want to say about that. You can't job hop,
Yeah.
right? That looks really bad for you and on your resume, whoever's looking to hire you. You have no stability. I say you need to stay, and I could be wrong, but I say you need to stay with the company for at least 2 years.
Yeah. I think it's a good number. Yeah.
I think so too. That's giving them a chance. It's giving you a chance to get what you need and it's giving the company a chance to, I want to say to have you, but not to have you,
Yeah,
for you to learn what you need from that company.
absolutely. That's what I look at. When I'm hiring for roles, I'm cool with someone being there for 2 years. Back in the day, you're looking for like 5, 7 years and all that. But to me, and I think about my own experience. Um, about 2 to 3 years, I'm rolling. I'm rolling. But that's because I have a clear plan on what it is I need to achieve in this role. That is the thing that they hired me for. But then the other piece is, what do I personally need to walk away from, walk away with as I move forward. And so once I feel that I've been there for that cycle of learning, implementing, and sustaining,
Mm-hmm.
so I can say I started there, I learned this, I brought in these plans, and I saw this project or these initiatives, saw them through for a whole, full cycle. I can say these are the successes that came with it. And, at minimum, that 3 year mark, I might say, all right, I think it's time for me to roll, especially if you're not growing anymore.
Yeah.
But before, if you're leaving at 2 years, my recommendation is be able to speak to what you did in that role. Um, and not just your job description. I want to know, what is your impact? I did this work, which helped 5,000 people this year with their community cases, or I provided graphic design support for 500 employees. What is the scope and scale of your role? So I know, oh, okay, you did some big stuff
Yeah.
over there, or you can at least speak to the scope and scale of it. That's me know what you were supposed to do. But when you
Yeah.
start rambling into the job description, I'm like, that's great, but what did you do? What was your impact in that role?
That. I like that. That's good advice. That's really good advice. I wanted to go back to something you said about when you go to the supervisor, and you want to address some issues that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
There's this thing that's called do not be a complainer. So you see something going on in the company, you see that something is not maybe implemented correctly. That's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just going and pointing out all of the errors, you should be looking for ways to help resolve this. So
Absolutely.
when I bring this to your attention, what I need to be bringing with me is, here's something I think that would work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's adding value to you.
Mm-hmm.
I am pointing out your faults. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not going to point them out like right in your face, but I am pointing out that something over here is just not working right. But
Yeah.
can we try this? Or I've tried this and it seems to work for me. It's about wording, but it's also about adding value, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. It goes back to timing, toning, and tact on that. And I think what I would also add is, um, ask a lot of questions to your peers, possibly. So folks you work with, and say, hey, do you know why we do it this way? Just to understand the process. There may be some context that you don't have.
Right.
And so now you're understanding the larger context, because your boss may not even know. They may have started after whatever was put in place. And so now you're talking to other people and asking some questions and saying, well, have we ever tried it this way? Or um, again, why do we do it this way? And so now you can go to your boss and say, hey, I've been working on this process, and it feels like we have too many steps. And so I asked a couple people, they also agreed it's too many steps. And they said that this was brought up because of blah, blah, blah. That's no longer a factor. Have we considered doing A, B, and C instead of A, B, and C, and D? So
Yes.
bringing that recommendation, but also posing it as a question, until you get to that point where you can, in your career, where you say, this is what I think we need to do, it's better to ask those questions and frame it that way. So it seems like more of a partnership and an inquiry as to what
A demand or
exactly. But you got to your point you made earlier, you don't want to be a complainer. And so spacing it out sometimes, or if you have a regular check-in time with your boss, I think it's a good time. Like I meet with my staff. We meet every week. I meet with my boss every week. And so
Yes.
there are things that whatever I have, we bring it up once a week, or I say, you know what, let me sit on this for a little bit because I know there's a lot going on. So let me put this on my to-do list to follow up with in February because it may fix itself. I may not care about it as much, or there may be a lot, just a lot going on. Um, but yeah, you don't want to be the complainer. I'm all for questioning a process if you know that there is a way we can do it differently, or you can see a better way to be, more efficient. But for just for the sake of complaining, like nobody likes that.
Yeah, nobody likes that because you're labeled the complainer. No one wants to talk to you. No one wants to work with you. They see you
Yep.
coming in, they turn and walk away.
Yep.
Let me tell you what I did. I worked for OnStar.
Mm-hmm.
It had just come to Charlotte. That was like one of the very first ones. My thing with the way that I'm a little OCD in the way that I work. So I was a call center, of course. That's when you push the button, right? My thing was whoever I talked to, I wrote it down. I had a notebook with me at all times. I just wrote down the account number, who I spoke with, what did they want, and what time did they call. You know, the beginning and the end. When did the call come in? Uh, and when did it end? So I implemented that. I didn't know that I was implementing it. I didn't know it was a thing. It was just me.
Just your doing.
So if I get called, like if QA, quality assistant, that listens to your calls, if they call me in for any reason, saying that I've said or done anything on this call, I'll go back to the date. I'll remember, this is what happened because I got it written down. This is just me, but this is something that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's just uh, instead of just steady taking the calls and calls and calls and calls and waiting on the next one. Yeah, you're still doing that anyway. But if my name is on it, I'm doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how I felt about it. So I had a manager walk around and ask me about it. They heard about it, and it's just a notebook page. And then I took it and I drew lines on typing paper and just printed off some copies. It became implemented.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know I was doing nothing, Kevin. I didn't know I was doing something that would help the company. To me, it was just helping me keep up with what I was doing. But there's a value add in there, right? I'm not just here. I'm actually adding value. So it was implemented for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing. So
Mm-hmm.
that might be something that I cut out of this podcast, but just throw that on out there too.
But you could also walk away and say, this is what, if somebody asked you, what was your impact? I implemented our call log system. Why is that? Well, we have our digital log that also gave us a backup, be able to speak to it.
Yes, that is a good thing. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So let's ask, what is your level of education? I heard you mention a couple of shout outs to those colleges that you went to. So can you tell us about them?
Yep. So I have my bachelor's degree in marketing from Colorado State University. Went to Eastern Michigan and I transferred, finished up at Colorado State. And right now I'll actually be starting grad school this spring. I'll be starting at University of Illinois in their Master's of Management program. Um, so yeah, I'm excited about that. And I've go ahead.
This is my cousin, so I want y'all to know that now he's younger than I am. Let's just put that out there. He's not as old as I am. But what I like about what he just said is that he's getting ready to go and get his master's. So it's never too late to learn. Right, Kevin?
I agree 100%. I feel like you should never stop learning. Um, and I feel like as your career progresses, you should always be looking for opportunities to learn more and add mastery to your skill set. And I do it. Advise people to take a little bit of time. If you go to college and you're thinking about grad school, I do recommend people to wait to really figure out if it's something that really is going to add value to what you're trying to do, and not just be in a rush to go collect degrees, because that just means you go in debt faster, and you do miss out on an opportunity to make more money before you go back as well. So your degree may change, but your income's not going to change right away. So yeah, I definitely recommend people continue going. There's a number of certificate programs out there. I just finished up a nonprofit executive leadership program. Is this still? Yeah, it's still December. It seems a long month.
I know.
So I finished. It seemed like it's 2 months long, but I just finished that up this month at Northwestern University here, and so that was a selective process. I was one of 30 people from around the country to take part in that program. So there are opportunities beyond traditional degree programs to add to your educational background as well.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. Only 30 people around the whole country.
Yep. 30 people. Yep. Wow. And there were, I think, five Black men in the program, which was more than I thought it would be. But
women,
yeah.
Black women.
Black women, there was one, and then there was one Dominican woman and one Puerto Rican woman. So we had
3 women.
No, not 3 women. There was just 3 women of color. Well, 4 women of color.
Okay.
But there was only 1 Black woman.
Okay, how many women?
Out of 30, maybe about 20. So I think maybe 10 guys overall. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the women got in there.
Yeah.
So I mean that is good. It's very good for everybody, for all 30 of you guys. And I'm not going to sit here and nitpick it, because I'm not going to do that, because it's got to be a great feeling, right?
Yes and no. The good thing is, being selected to be at our part program. I mean, that's a great university. And then the downside is that I'm one of a few people, few Black people in the program. And so, what I look at it is, I've been fortunate to be a part of this program, but then what do I do with the information? And so that's something I've been committed to through my podcast and just through professional development, bringing what I've learned through these programs and bringing it back to the village. Because I know everybody else won't have that opportunity that I had to be a part of the program. So, it's kind of like my mission, wherever I'm able to get in and, either blaze a trail or deepen the treads in it, I'll figure out how I can bring it back, because I don't know who else is behind me. Yes. Or who else had an opportunity. So, I get tired of being the first Black person. Like if I'm not, I know for a fact I'm the first Black director of marketing at my organization, and it's 63 years. I know that I am the first Black man who's on the leadership team at the organization that I'm at currently. But now I'm one of 2, so we're growing. It's been a shift. But everywhere I've been, my career, especially being in marketing communications, I'm usually the first or only Black person. So my mission is to make sure that that's not the case moving forward. So I try to find as many ways to bring in interns, have networking opportunities, because it gets old. And then what happens is other people who don't have that same mission and drive, they leave the field. And then we go back to square one, but I'm not going anywhere. So, how can I share this information? How can I bring my people up with me as well so we can keep knocking the doors down?
So you think that's the thing that the Black men are leaving the field?
Um, I think at a certain point, yeah. I think at a certain point, especially when you get higher up, just full transparency, typically marketing communication is a white woman's sport. Um, until you get to like the C suites, that's when you see more white men, but that gap in between is mostly white women. And marketing it's an interesting field, because you're marketing to different demographics and you have to appeal to these different groups.
Mhm.
And not everyone cares about the different groups. And so as a Black man, wherever I work, my people need to be represented in my work. Why not? Um, and that can cause a culture clash. If you're not the right organization or you don't have the right level of authority, you're clashing with your leadership over what inclusion looks like, what diversity looks like, and your marketing and your messaging. Is it genuine? Is it authentic? And sometimes they'll tell you that this isn't the right look for the organization. And
Okay,
that might be true, but that just means it's time for you not to be there anymore.
right. Because and you're right. Oh,
It's
yes.
that culture piece. It's the culture piece. And so, you get tired of, like for me, I look at who's my mentor in this space.
Nobody.
Who do I look to? Yeah, I'm sure there's someone out there, but they're a needle in a haystack. And so if you're not me or someone like me, that gets discouraging because you're looking like who's blazing that trail, that path that I can follow that gives you hope and then lets you know what's possible. Without seeing what's possible, there's no motivation. And people leave or they'll transition into another business function. But it's a tough industry, and it does take some grit. It does take some backbone because you have to argue with people and prove your case. And for me, at this point in my career, like I'm coming in the door asking these questions in the interview very clearly, around diversity, inclusion. What is your strategy? Where do you want to see marketing going? And if where you are isn't where I am, that's fine. That just means I can't work here because I'm not going to fight when I come to work, when I
Yeah.
have to fight just every day when I walk out the door.
Yes. Yes. I like that. I like that. But see, you have paved the way for yourself where you're at that point where you can pick and choose.
Mm-hmm.
So you said who's a mentor for you? You don't know, but you're that mentor for so many others. Unfortunately, Kevin, cousin, you have to be in that spot,
Mm-hmm.
that spotlight
Yep.
alone. Unfortunately, and it is unfortunate because we're in an age right now where we're supposed to be talking about these cultural changes. That's what this whole year was about,
Mm-hmm.
2020, right? I don't want to get so deep into it, but a lot of companies were talking about diversity and culture and all of that. So, since you don't have that mentor, it is your role right now to be a mentor to people, to people,
Mm-hmm.
but to people that look like you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, Dubai's daughter is not about race. Of
Mm-hmm.
course not. We're not about economic background. Of course not. But being a person of color, it's hard to not talk about something.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. And again, I don't get involved in all of that on this podcast, but this is
Mm-hmm.
our life.
This is a reality. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
everyday. So what I do like about um, you being the mentor part, and what I don't like about it as well, is that I've got a nephew that graduated in communications. He's doing well, but he's 23.
Hmm.
So he just so happened to get noticed because of the cultural situations that's been going on. So he has a podcast as well, and he got on there on his own podcast in his own room, and he talked about how it made him feel as a black man, as a young
Hmm.
black man, how he feared for his life just because of the color of his skin. Now I'm listening to that, and because it's my nephew, maybe even more because it's my nephew, it brought tears to my eyes
Yeah.
because you have to go through this. But he got recognition for that. Someone heard it. The newspaper picked it up. They asked him to do this, they asked him to do that, and he's just moving on up the line at 20 something years old. But who does he have as a mentor? If you're
Yeah.
saying this is the way your market is right now, who does he have? And I might even cut some of this out, just so I won't be so political on this. But it
Yeah.
is, I mean, it's a thing that's happening right now. That's not how it's supposed to be. But
Something,
tell me,
a thought that I had, when we just mentioned, just around the podcast and, um, how it's not specifically around race and all of that. One thing that I think, um, people can take away from the conversation is it may not, it while the conversation does have those tones in it, what people can take away from it is perspective. And thinking about the young women that are in the program, they're going to be the leaders
of
at
tomorrow.
some point, and understanding the complexities of, in my situation, a black man, you're going to be managing a black man or a black woman who may be the only person in their department or the first person. And just understanding that perspective of, these are all things that, these people deal with, that compassion and empathy as a leader, those are the things that we don't teach, growing up. And you get into situations, and think my son, he quit a job, because of a situation like that. There are just cultural differences between him and his manager. And, she came from a little college town somewhere, and he's from Detroit. And you can't just come in here and talk to us any old kind of way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we said that at the same time. No,
Uh-huh.
because you're not supposed to, no matter who you are, it, whether you're on the street or in business, there's a level of respect that you are supposed to show to everybody. Everybody demands respect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some people out there that commands respect. We know that there's a difference, right? But you're supposed to be respectful to everyone. And again, with the podcast being geared toward the adults, they should be listening too, because I have managers, I have owners of companies that have been guests on our podcast, that listens to our podcast. Every time we put one out, they listen to it. So they will be hearing this one as well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something that you can take back to your company, right? It's something that you can do. There is a thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We do. We thank you for that. It needed to be said with you. So in the company, have you noticed not just the cultural difference, but business etiquette lacking?
Currently, no. Overall, yes. And I think I'm in where I work is right now it's a pretty good place. I never worked with such high performers across the board.
Great.
Um, but overall, I feel that in the workplace it is lacking, and I think that the um, what's played a role in that is just the digital nature of everything. So we're having less in-person interactions, less face-to-face conversations, and everything is just strictly through email, very quickly, very abruptly. Even in meetings, things are people shy away from having the conversation. They'll say, "Well, let's follow up on that offline," instead of just let's just have a conversation now. We can disagree, but let's understand perspective. And
Right.
so I feel that etiquette is kind of going away, um, along with being able to be direct and having direct conversations with people, having professional disagreements, or when it comes to hosting events and programs and things like that, you can see the professional etiquette lacking. Um, it's just because we're just shifting away. Everybody's shifting away to such a digital environment, and it allows people to be so short. And because we spend so much time on social media, and the way that we speak to our friends and family, we think that that's acceptable everywhere. And you have to take it just like you do, with my dad. I can talk to my dad a certain way. I talk to my wife a certain way. I talk to my kids a certain way.
Yes.
And I think that's the same thing that needs to apply in a workplace. You have to figure out, you have to know when and where to kind of shift those conversations, but that's not happening. I'm seeing it and it's just like, did you just send me that email, or is that what you typed and sent over? We're in a meeting, like that's the way you interrupted to make a point. And you just kind of sit there like, where where are you all coming from? Who taught you this? But it's just this instant culture we're in. I do see a number of people providing like etiquette training and things like that, professional etiquette. Some people even putting into personal branding or executive presence. So I do see people committed to making sure that it doesn't go away. But I think overall, it's lacking. It's lacking in the workplace, and I think it gets in the way of progress. You
Yes.
spend more time trying to decode and figure something out, or probing to get an answer, or um, correcting the work that someone did because it's unprofessional, versus just being able to do the work. It allows you, it just forces you to go back too many times.
That's inconsiderate. First thing. It's inconsiderate, it's unprofessional. Unprofessional, I'm sorry. It's inconsiderate and unprofessional. And especially in this viral land that we've got to be in now. There's the eye contact that still has to be there.
Mm-hmm.
There's still supposed to be the one person talks at a time.
Yeah.
That part. And then the emails, or even the, what do you call it, the chat on the side,
Yeah. Yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah, that's still supposed to be professional, because everybody can see, even if it says private. I'm sending you a private message in this chat, someone can still see that.
Absolutely.
So where's your professionalism? Did you just let it go because we're in virtual land, because I can't see you face to face and you don't have to talk to me face to face? So
It's the culture. The culture accepts that.
who do you think is to blame for it then? I know this question is not, one that we have, but who do you think, who would you blame for that? Would you blame the employees or the employer for allowing
I
it to
always am. I always put the blame on the employers every time, because they set the tone. They're the metronome for the organization. And so they established a culture, and people model what they see. And so then people model what they see and what's allowed to continue.
Yeah.
And so I put that on the companies to have to own it. If they don't correct it and set the expectation that this is not how you behave, how you communicate, and how you interact, then, why should I do something different as an employee? I'm just going to do what I can. People are always going to do what they can get away with every single time. So it's on the company.
Yeah.
And I think part of it too is, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, is just this avoidance of having to have direct conversations and make tough decisions. I have no problem pulling somebody aside, having a quick huddle and saying, hey, when you send these emails, make sure you spell check them a few times, and you may want to double check your tone. I have no problem with that, because hey, that's my job as a leader, is to be your coach, but then also your representation, not only of me as your leader, but also our organization.
Yes.
So it's on us. If we don't fix it, then it just continues. That's on us. I mean, that's the same thing with poor performers. I don't blame the employees. I blame the bosses every single time for allowing it to happen.
And that's the thing too, but the employees have a responsibility. They do.
Absolutely.
Right? So they're supposed to know about an email, first of all. But if someone comes to you, that's an issue. If you have to go to somebody and tell them about an email that they've sent, not your reaction, because you've already given your reaction. You've noticed the email that they sent. As the employee, how do they respond? They're not supposed to be instantly angry or take it as criticism.
Mm-hmm.
There's a constructive criticism part that comes in there. Oh, I didn't realize I did that. The reason you didn't is because you didn't check your stuff before you sent it out. Mm-hmm. You're always supposed to do your reading before you send it out. Now, yeah, there are typos in there, and there's the autocorrect, and there's all of that stuff is out there. Mm-hmm. But before I send something to my supervisor or my manager, I'm going to triple check that.
But that's what the ideal person should do. But as we know, that's not everybody. And then, my years in leadership, I don't assume anything before somebody gets to me. Because you may have had a trash boss that thought that was okay, or that boss didn't know that was unacceptable to them. And so I figured once it gets to me, now it's time for me to coach that. I mean, when you get to a certain level, yes, there are certain expectations that come with it. But again, you never know what happened before they got to you. And so it's kind of like, I can't worry about it, but I see this as an issue. Let's nip this real quick. But to your point, if you spend enough time with your team and you show them that I'm invested in your success, and my role is to not be your boss, but is to be a leader and a coach. Even the best athletes have a coach for a reason. And so when I come to you and let you know that there's something that you can do better or differently or need to stop, it's not coming from a place of being petty or anything like that. It's because I actually am invested in you. I want to make sure you look good out here. But this is also the culture, this expectation of excellence. And so this is what this looks like going forward. Yeah.
I like all of that. I really do. And I hope that they reciprocate, I hope that they take it in and move forward. So the next time, I've already told you, but the next time I see it, what's your reaction on that?
The tone changes a little bit. Okay. The tone changes, and sometimes it's worth putting it in documentation, not necessarily writing somebody up, but just putting in your notes. We had this conversation 6 months ago about this, and we're here again. And the other piece of it, and this comes from working years in retail and managing people. Sometimes let's sit down. Why can't you do this? What are the barriers keeping you? And sometimes you may find that it might be they have too much going on and they can't stop to focus on detail because they have so much work. Okay, cool. Why do you have so much work to do? Is it a time management issue? Do we really have too much work going on? There's that whole seek to understand conversation that can happen before you dig in. It's like, all right, the first time that's cool, but the second time, like, all right, this is a repeat thing. What's going on? Why can't your quality of work match, or what is the issue here? And there could be something else there. So I've learned to not jump to the gun and get a little too stern with them, but that tone still does have to change. But we have to figure out what's going on,
But
and you
I
gotta let
like
them.
this.
Yeah, you gotta let them know. Yeah.
I mean, I like the way you said what could be going on in the background, because people life happens.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that has been my experience, as a designer, working in a space where I was the only designer at a university in this whole division. And so everything's coming to me and I had some errors, some things coming through. And it wasn't because I didn't want to be great. And it wasn't that I didn't think I was great. My workload was just too much. And so in order to keep up with it, I'm just pushing through and I'm missing things here and there. And so, I had that conversation with my boss and, I'm like, hey, I'm having this issue because there's just too much work and it's not me managing my time. It's a lot of projects coming through. So let's work on a plan so I can spend more time on these projects that turn them around quick. And so I think that's a piece that I hope that the listeners take away is through your journey, when you have these different experiences, I jot them down or I think about them and think about, like, if I had a bad manager, I have a whole document from when I worked at Target from a bad manager, because I was intent on, when I get to this level, I don't want to make these mistakes.
Yeah.
And so remember, when you're managing people, reflect back on your time in their shoes and have that empathy and understanding, because it may not be as cut and dry. They may not have received the same training that you thought they should have. They may not have had the same type of boss. All you can control is what happens when they're with you now, and it's up to you as their coach. And either you fix it, or they can promote up, or they promote out. And so you got those two paths instead of letting them just kind of linger on.
Yeah. So when you say coach, you're saying mentor.
No, coach. I see those as two different roles. Mentors, I see that more as a non-leadership role. I mentor people in my current organization that do not work for me, but I'm a coach to the people that report to me in my role. They might see me as a mentor. I don't know, but I don't function in that capacity.
But they could easily.
What's that?
They could easily see you as a mentor, because until you just explained it to me, that's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Mentor. And it's not like, come here, I'm going to mentor you.
Yeah.
It's not that. Mentorships, or people that want to mentor others, they do it subtly, a little nudge here in the right direction, or call you out, on something minor that can be improved on. That's mentoring to me. And it's
setting them up on a path, helping them with developing a strategy. And there's some coaching, I think, that definitely goes into mentoring as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like that. Yes. So, how does your company deal with, well, I think we kind of just handled that, answered that. How does your company deal with business etiquette? And is it something that's mandatory? I think we've already covered that. In some companies, it is mandatory. To me, it's like a child watching you, or someone coming into your household and they're watching the way that you act. And so they're going to model themselves after the way you act. If the person that you're dealing with or talking to, if they're accepting it, then I can do it too.
Yeah, it's that culture.
Yeah, but you can't do
Culture
that.
trumps everything.
It's like if here's this is a big if. But if my husband was to talk to me a certain way in public, you think it'd be all right for someone else to do it? Or am I going to get very angry with the person out in public that does it? Not get mad at him because I'm used to it, but the person out in public. First off, let me tell y'all to buy his daughter land. None of this happens. None of that happens. But it's a thing though.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talked to or treated a certain way, you're expecting that and you're giving it. But if someone shows you kindness or like a pay it forward type thing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do this for you because I wish someone had done it for me,
Yep.
or someone did do it for me. It's still mentoring, paying it forward, and people need help. So we are trying to reach 15, 16, 17-year-old females and give them a good start in business etiquette because, like we said earlier in this conversation, that's the future. They're the future.
Mm-hmm.
Not just the women, but this is what who our organization deals with are the young ladies. That's going to be the future. So it's not going to be a case where there's only one Black woman out of 30. No, no. We need more than that. We need women, period, but we need more women of color to be involved in things, to be chosen for different things. We need that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're reaching out to, again, we're reaching out to a lot of different um, ethnicities. We're not cutting anybody out because you don't know what their situation is,
Absolutely.
right? So, did you have any comments or questions for us at Device Daughter?
No, I think what you're doing is great. It's definitely needed. I think you're starting at the right age. At that pivotal age in high school, and to prepare for their lives, whatever path that takes. Um, and I just think that it's huge and important to allow people to share their stories and share their experiences, that are not too far removed from the age range. The information is relevant, because that's information that I didn't have growing up. It's information you didn't have growing up. And I guess my last thought is to hopefully that the leaders, listeners rather, will adopt one of my favorite quotes, and that's to be who you needed when you were younger. And just kind of let that lead the way. Whatever gaps you have, whatever training or guidance you missed, that gives you license and fire to provide that for somebody else. Don't look at yourselves as I missed it, so nobody else needs to get it. Somebody else needs it.
Yes, that's nice. Now, who's that? That's your quote. Those are your own words.
No, that's someone I've seen it posted a few different times by like three different people. I don't know who the originator is of it, but that's my thing. Be who you need when you're younger.
I like that. I do. Because I think that we as adults, I think it's our job to teach them what we know. We have to teach someone, and not just your children. You're supposed to teach.
Yeah.
That's just point blank. You're supposed to teach your children. But there's so many others out there that needs the help. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be this business etiquette part. It doesn't have to be the marketing part. It doesn't have to be any. It could be something as simple as don't let someone mistreat you or speak up for yourself. It's something.
Advocate. Absolutely.
Yes, yes, I like it. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, your wise, wise words. So this is again Kevin L. Davis, and we appreciate having you on here, Dubai's daughter. Please listen to this podcast. Let us know what your thoughts are on this, and follow us at on Spotify. I'm sorry, follow us on Spotify at Dubai's daughter, and please check out our website, devisedaughter.org. Pleasure speaking with you. We'll speak soon.